bitter end. Come and join us, DNVR. We are DNVR.
We are DNVR, and we are live from Studio A. The A stands for a lot of cuts to be made in the next 24-ish hours. And we're going to, unfortunately, do some cutting of our own today as we make our 53-man roster predictions here in just a few minutes. But first,
we were cutting this to 2 people. I'm like, uh-oh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's going to be like Survivor around here.
Kale and Zach, you're out.
Wow.
Oh.
Well, we did... I did say on Saturday's pod, if this is my last one, it's been fun.
Yeah. Well, we wanted to give you a chance to make an exit interview,
And it's already done.
Yes. But anyways, before we get into all that, want to let you know that our presenting sponsors, MSU Denver. MSU Denver, by the way, we've got the golf tournament coming up this Friday. MSU Denver hooked us up with some sweet bags that we're going to give out to everyone out there. You still have a matter of minutes to sign up for the DNVR golf tourney. So if you're sitting there right now saying, man, I wish I could have the time of my life this coming Friday morning, well,
boom,
got the news for you. Anyways, MSU Denver, they're awesome, and they are the place to go if you're looking to further your education while working a full-time job. MSU Denver students work twice as many hours as students attending any other Colorado institution. So check them out, msudenver.edu/online.
My boys, what's up? And unfortunately, some Denver Broncos could be looking to further education at MSU Denver after these next couple days. I mean, these next couple days stink, guys. It's terrible that, 37 guys' dreams end? Now, you will get some guys that go on the practice squad, but more guys than not, their dreams are going to be crushed. I mean, just to be brutally honest.
We've had a couple of rounds of cuts already, though, so we're looking at 27 to get from 80 to 53.
I thought that's what you said. Did you say 37?
Yeah.
Okay.
In total, it'll be 37.
And so you have a 16-person practice squad, and undoubtedly you're probably going to see a couple of guys go on injured reserve. So it's not ideal, but probably fewer dreams are ending with this cut than we've seen at the past at the cut to 53.
Yeah, I mean, the last couple of years when they just hammered it all out in one day and there was thousands of NFL players out there on the market all of a sudden, it was pretty wild. This year it's a little bit more like the old way they used to do it, which I tend to prefer. But yeah, the Broncos have to get down to 53 by what time tomorrow?
2 p.m.
4
tomorrow.
Eastern, 2 Mountain.
2 p.m. tomorrow. So really the cuts should start rolling in any minute now. You'll probably see a couple today and then the bulk of it coming tomorrow. But yeah, it is a bummer. I will say not all of their dreams are coming to an end. You've seen guys get cut plenty of times and make it. The one coming to mind is Shelby Harris. He probably felt that way a couple of times, like his dream was coming to an end, but perseverance pays off in this business, and some guys, scratch and claw their way to a big contract.
And the other thing is, just because you make the 53 doesn't mean you're necessarily safe.
Oh, yeah.
Because we've seen waiver claims and moves after the fact happen over the years. Remember River Craycraft a couple of years ago when they kept him on the 53, but Vic Fangio effectively said, yeah, they're looking for another punt returner.
Yeah.
I'll never forget my guy, Sefo Lufau, on Hard Knocks, talking to Jameis Winston when he was with the Buccaneers, and he was like, wait, so you can get cut the day after they cut it down to 53? And he's like, yeah, man, you can get cut at any time.
He didn't have to worry about that, though, right?
No, I don't think he did.
Yeah,
I think he was on the practice squad for a little while.
Yeah, I think so.
What is he up to these days?
Then there was Kyle Pecco, who was told he was going to be cut, and then they actually called him back, and they were like, wait, actually, no, you're on the 53.
You guys remember Kyle Johnson, fullback for the Broncos back in the mid-2000s?
Yes.
Okay. He was literally on the car service on his way to DIA. And Mike Anderson had gotten hurt in the preseason game, and they were waiting for kind of the full battery of tests. They find out that Anderson has torn his groin. So they need a fullback. And so get the call while the car service is going out there. Kyle, you need to come back.
It's a good call to get.
Yes.
He ends up sticking for a couple more years on the roster.
Wow.
It's a good call to get.
Yeah, it's a great call
just
to get.
because of that injury. So
yeah, Kyle had the same sort of thing where he was told, hey, we probably want to get you back on the practice squad, and then boom, gets the call. You're back. All right, let's jump into this.
Really quick, follow on thednvr.com for all the cuts. We're going to have the most
nice.
updated list going from once the first cut starts till when they're down to 53. So that's the best way to follow it.
Also, while we're doing housekeeping notes, I saw a ton of people are watching on Periscope. Flip over to YouTube, it's better. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit us with a thumbs up. We appreciate that. It helps us boost up in the algorithm so more people can watch this. Okay. Let's start on the offensive side of the ball. We all made our roster predictions. We all sent them to Kale. They're all pretty similar. So why don't we just bring up Zach's roster? He dropped this on the DNVR.com the other day. And if we have any points of contention here, just don't hesitate to speak up, Mase.
So short list here for quarterbacks, guys. I only have 2 quarterbacks making the roster. Obviously, it's Drew and Teddy.
Yeah. When I built my roster, I left a couple spots that I thought were going to be open, and I said, okay, well, if by the end of this I still have a couple spots open, I'll throw these guys back on. Brett Rippon is one of them, where I was thinking, okay, well, if I have an extra spot, he'll be towards the top of the list of the guys that they'll keep. There wasn't a spot. Not to mention, we talked about this on the postgame pod. He was terrible this preseason.
Yeah, and here's the thing. You have to think of it of if he gets poached, can you go find a guy that's just like him if you need to get him? Yeah, I think you can.
You benched Drew Lock, so you don't really need the Drew Lock whisperer anymore.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you don't need to keep him around. Now, I do think they would like to bring him back on the practice squad, but again, if you lose him...
To San Francisco and Rich Gangarello.
Right.
Or if you find out, hey, there was a quarterback.
Although, isn't Nick Mullins going to be out there too? Wasn't he in Philadelphia?
And
now they have 3.
Yeah.
So he'll be
Nick
available.
Mullins.
Yeah.
I'd take Brett Rippon over Nick Mullins.
No, I'm saying Skangs in San Francisco will probably take Nick Mullins over Brett Rippon.
Yeah.
I'd take Nick.
Oh, I would take Nick too.
If the Falcons waive Josh Rosen, would you bring him in?
Yeah, for sure.
I would have brought him in last week.
I don't think they're waiving him. He looked really good yesterday.
That was a real nice touchdown that he had.
Yep.
Yeah, and then he talks about how his package got bigger.
Yes, I saw that.
How about that? Wow.
But, I mean, Brett Rippon, the chances of him passing through the practice squad are pretty good. And that's something that you're going to see, I think, come up in a lot of these cuts is that it may not be the best 53, even though they may say, oh, it's the best 53. Some of these moves on the back end of the roster are going to be about, okay, we can slip this guy through and get him back, but this other guy, we may not be able to slip through. And I think that may play a role in some of the decisions as we get into later.
I think so, too.
I think it will as well. All right, let's... Yeah?
I was going to say, let's hit running backs
let's do it.
and see what's next. Or, honestly, Kale, whatever you want to bring up. We're versatile, just like Andrew Beck, speaking of running backs, or tight ends. So running backs, I've got Melvin Gordon, obviously, Javonte Williams, obviously, Mike Boone, and Royce Freeman. Thanks to Mike Boone's injury, Mike Boone will not go on IR because an important note here, if you go on IR before the team is built, you're done. You're done for the year. You can't be brought back. So let's say a guy has an 8-week injury, which not the case with Mike Boone, but let's say he has an 8-week injury and you want him to play this year. He makes the 53-man roster, so you have to cut someone. Then you put him on IR. Then you can sign someone with that roster spot.
And we've seen this several times over the last few years. I think the most prominent example was probably Shane Ray back in 2017, making the team after he was hurt and for one day, then going on IR, coming back at midseason.
And didn't they use that roster spot for Brock Osweiler once they put him on?
They did, yes.
So, there's always fun little
You love
things
great reunions.
But speaking of IR is different this year, correct? Anyone can come back from being on IR, and you only have to be on for 3 weeks.
Yep, exactly. Which is how it should be.
So keep an eye on this one, because it might make sense for them to IR Mike Boone for 3 weeks and open up a roster
and
spot.
Michael Ojemudia as well is definitely a multi-week IR candidate, and this gives you the flexibility to poach someone else, and that's where it gets kind of interesting. You say, every team may look and say, okay, we've got this guy that we're going to be without for 4 weeks. We make a claim. It's an easy move to put somebody on IR. So maybe because of this, the waiver claim wire is going to be more active than most years because there should be more spots available.
All right, so all in agreement there, though. Royce Freeman makes the team basically because of Mike Boone's injury. And I thought about that one. That was one where I was like, man, this is going to cost someone else a roster spot, you probably want to keep Royce around.
Yeah, you have to. And what's so funny about this is throughout the offseason, when asked about the running back position, Vic never once brought up Royce. And it was like, dang, man, that is so cold-blooded to do. Right when Mike Boone gets injured, we see Royce Freeman featured in the offense. We see Vic just gushing about him. And it's like, okay, it was very clear. If Mike Boone stayed healthy, Royce isn't making the team. They're only having 3 running backs. Now that Royce is going to make the team, I mean, it's a lock that he's going to make the team now.
Yeah. As I was watching the preseason, I was really, I mean, with all due respect to DeMaurier Crockett, is that his name?
DeMaurier.
Yeah.
Another Mizzou guy. He had a lot of yards from Mizzou people on Saturday.
There were, and then there was the other guy who got hurt after one carry, Killens.
Yeah.
Watching all those guys, I was like, man, we really got robbed from Mike Boone. He would have made this a lot more fun to watch.
Yep, he certainly would have. So we're all in agreement there. All right, Kale, let's hit another spot on offense. Looking at tight ends, I got Noah Fant, Alberto, locks. Eric Salbert, also a lock. Boom, Drake guy, producer KO coming in with that.
Like, what is going on?
A fan favorite, Eric Salbert. And guys, I've got Andrew Beck on here because of his versatility. Do you guys agree?
100%.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of, I don't know. It's, to me, decide if you want a fullback or not. If you want a fullback, keep a fullback. If you want a tight end, then make it a tight end. I would rather have a full-time fullback if a guy's going to make a roster spot just for being a fullback.
So then why did you go with Andrew Beck over the true fullback in Adam Prentice?
Because he went to CSU. No, I'm just kidding.
You're not fully kidding.
No, I did it. No, I actually really liked Prentice. I did it because I'm basing it. This is a prediction, not what I would do.
Yeah.
They clearly don't want to be a fullback team. But if you're keeping Andrew Beck, he's not going to play tight end for you unless he has to. So to me, it's just keep a tight end. Or keep a fullback.
You should be able to get Prentice on the practice squad
100%.
too. If you want a fullback, and the other thing,
he can be an apprentice on the practice squad.
He can. And the other thing is, you have a special teams unit that is, as Tom McMahon noted, it's lacking in leadership. You're looking for guys who can contribute anywhere you can, and Beck plays on most special teams units as well, so he's got value there.
And it's not that I don't like Andrew Beck. It's just he's not actually a fullback, and he's not a very great tight end.
But he's going to watch. He's going to be on this team for 4 years when all is said and done. I'll predict that right now.
Isn't this already his third?
Yeah. I mean, he's, if you guys remember Patrick Haight back in the 2000s, kind of an H-back, fullback on occasion, mostly a tight end. Every year, I kept not having him on my 53, and every year he kept making it. So I learned my lesson from Patrick Haight. And that's why I've got Andrew Beck on my 53.
And also, I think the Broncos are going to be using a fullback, or at least they're going to want to appear that they're using a fullback with how much they want to run the ball. So I think that's why Andrew Beck does have a spot on this team. And I think it's also a good time to bring up just how important special teams is going to be. Vic has preached it over this past week. George Payton talked about it over the weekend before the game, just about how when they build this roster, special teams is going to be in the front of their mind. So Andrew Beck, that's another reason why he makes it. And I think that
should have had special teams on the front of your mind when you were building the coaching staff this offseason.
Yeah, they've had a couple of years to change, and they haven't done it.
I mean, Vic threw McMahon under the bus without specifically saying his name on Saturday.
What's
He's
funny
done
is
it multiple times.
The coaching's got to get better.
What's funny is when you throw Tom McMahon under the bus, you get tugged right under with him because you've tethered yourself to him.
I mean, how long would Brock Olivo have lasted for Vic Fangio?
Wow, that would have been fun. Would have been entertaining.
I mean,
say.
Both Italian guys. They could have. I mean, both guys like to talk about pasta and meatballs.
Yeah.
I remember Brock Olivo talking about coaching in Italy and all that stuff. So.
Jano would still be here.
Jano would be around.
No Andrew Beck.
No Andrew Beck.
Brock Olivo would be best buds with Vic Fangio.
Yep, he would be. And speaking of special teams, I think that goes right into the wide receiver group here. We still have the exact same roster right now, guys. Let's see if there's any changes here. I've got Judy, Sutton, Hamler, Patrick, all locks. And then pretty much a lock, Trinity Benson in my mind. Then you got Seth Williams, Deontay Spencer. I've got this group at 7. Do you guys agree?
Yes, I have this at 7, and I have the exact same 7. Now, there is a point of contention here with some other media. I've seen both. I haven't seen everyone's, but I've seen both Mike Kliss and Jeff Legwold include Tyree Cleveland on their 53s.
Over Seth Williams.
And I don't see it at all.
One guy, it's not like Seth Williams is skyrocketing up in terms of his trending, but he's a rookie, so he gets the benefit of the doubt, so he is kind of trending up. Tyree Cleveland, guys,
Trending
last
down.
year he was really trending up. He's done nothing but go the opposite direction this entire offseason in training camp.
Done nothing but drop passes.
Yeah, so
In
then
training
he-
camp,
he-
and that's the problem. Now, the thing is, there was some good film of him in games last year, so is it something where he's less likely to slip through because
Right.
he has that regular season game film that Seth Williams does not have? I mean, with all respect to Seth Williams and Tyree Cleveland, this is the other thing to consider. Those young receivers on the back end of rosters, they're dime a dozen, and every team has receivers that they like. It's just because college football has no trouble producing receivers who can step in and help.
So it's
right now.
it's a good point, Mase, about who's more likely to slip through. But then at some point you do have to draw the line and say, well, who do I want? Because who's more likely to slip through? A 7th round pick that has struggled this year, but also has good tape, or a 6th round pick. That's a rookie. I think you personally, maybe you're right about Tyree is less likely to slip through waivers, but to me, I want the rookie, and the rookie's going to undoubtedly get the benefit of the doubt.
Yes, I agree. It is a good point, and it helps me maybe understand why some people have Tyree Cleveland out there. My take on Tyree Cleveland is I just don't know if he's very good. So
It's an issue.
to me, I'm like, if you lose him, whatever.
I mean, you have this day 3 rookie receiver that they're very similar in type, and you bring him in every year. You had Juwan Winfrey 2 years ago.
Yep.
And then Winfrey is jettisoned, and you move on to Tyree Cleveland. And then now Cleveland could be jettisoned, and you move on to Seth Williams. It's like the...
Seth Williams could be jettisoned next year.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The wide receiver circle of life, or kind of circle of death, if these guys keep getting cut at wide receiver. The other thing that you have to bring up is if a team calls about Tim Patrick, what level
said
of
nice to talk to you,
compensation
and you
would
hang
it
up.
take
to
trade Tim Patrick?
Wow.
More than I think anyone's willing to give up.
Would you do it for a 3rd?
No.
I think what you decide in this decision is you are deciding if you are signing Tim Patrick after this year and moving on from Cortland Sutton. If you have decided internally that you are going to let Tim Patrick leave, I do a deal for a 3rd. If you have decided that you don't want to pay Cortland Sutton because you know you're going to be paying Jerry Jeudy and you know both of those guys are going to be 15
You don't have
plus,
to pay Jerry Jeudy for 3 more years after this season, though.
you can pay him in 1 more year, though.
You can,
And if
but-
you want to get maybe a better deal, you want to keep him happy, especially at the wide receiver position, you may do that. And so, and you're also not signing Cortland Sutton, in my opinion. I don't think you're signing him to a 1 year, $18 million deal. It's going to be a 5 year, $80 million deal or something
Unless
like that.
you want to tag him.
Right, and then that just brings the window
Right.
of
can just
you and
kick the
Jerry
can down the
Jeudy.
road, yeah.
Right. So what I'm saying is, if I get offered a 3rd round pick for Tim Patrick right now, I'm taking it. If I've decided I'm locking Cortland Sutton up after this year.
That's fair. My problem is if you trade him this year, like it contradicts everything that you've done up to this point. You're going with the safe quarterback, with
Yep.
with the lower floor, and if you trade Tim Patrick and touch wood, someone gets injured, you have a massive hole in your wide receiver room.
Or you go 2 tight end more, which may not be what Pat Shurmur wants to do. But if you lose Tim Patrick, maybe your best formation becomes 2 tight ends. Sometimes it's Salbert as the second tight end. Sometimes it's Albert O when you want to go more dynamic.
We already know that Pat Shurmur isn't interested in what the best 11 on the field is. He's interested in his scheme.
We
I'm just
hope
saying.
it's not 3 wide.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. But, like, that's what they've been doing all this time. And you saw Drew Lock struggle with it last year. Then when, he comes out in the preseason this year, his stats from under center have to be insane this preseason. But they don't want to do that. And that's another reason why I think Teddy Bridgewater's the starting quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it does play into that. And you're right, though, Ryan. It wouldn't add up into just the win now approach.
Right. It's just you're contradicting yourself of like, okay, well, we're going to sign Cortland next year, so let's make our roster worse this year to get a pick for next year that maybe we can replenish the Tim Patrick role with a third-round receiver next year.
Here's why I would be okay with it is I would be seeing kind of a plan moving forward instead of this year just being focused like 1,000,000% on this year, when I don't think anyone expects the Broncos to win the Super Bowl this year. And it's okay if you're not 100% all in for this year. It's okay if you're like 95% all in on this year. I think especially when you're not just about winning. So I would be okay with it. I totally see where you're coming from. And guys, when we look at the wide receiver position, a question that I had when it came up was Deontay Spencer.
Yeah.
And I thought, boy, that's an easy place to save a roster spot if you need it. But then I said, nope, I got to listen to Vic Fangio and George Payton. They have been impressed with KJ Hamler and catching the ball. He hasn't been able to do it
Trinity?
in a game yet. Trinity, they put him out there to try to get him some reps. He didn't get to catch any of them in this game this past week. That is certainly not the safe thing to do. And that would be taking a real gamble on special teams if you move on from Deontay, who's proven to be a very safe returner and a good returner. So that's why I had to give him a roster spot.
What happened to the old handshake deal between special teams coordinators to like allow them to get a look at their coverage units?
Seriously.
I know Corey Bajorquez or whatever his name is out there
ruined it.
dropping bombs. They got a great look at him. They're gonna cut him as soon as Johnny Hecker gets back on the roster.
Is he going to get picked up
How could he not?
by the Denver
The
Broncos?
Broncos should pick him
No
up.
offense to Sam Martin, but I'd be like, yeah.
Yep.
Bring. Is it Bajorquez? Is that?
I
how
believe that is how
Yeah.
it's pronounced.
Just wait till the press box tries to pronounce it.
By
Yes.
the way, you were talking about something interesting with like Drew Lock and under center and all that. In the first 2 preseason games, he had 22 under center snaps, and 18 of them were intended runs. 3 were play action passes, and then 1 was setting up to be a pass before the snap and getting his foot stepped on and all that. So, why do you think they're only generally willing to pass when it's when it's under center? They only are willing to do a play action pass out of that. And like basically, if I'm a defense and I see those kinds of trends, when you go under center, I'm assuming I'm gonna drop one safety just in case, but generally I'm assuming run.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they showed 90% of the time they're going to run the ball from under center.
Yeah.
You do not want to give those type of tendencies to your opponent. So, I mean, to me, it just goes back to the old problem of lack of creativity. You should be running end arounds from out of there. You know, you should be that obviously still counts as a run. But screens, everything. You need to mix up your looks so that other teams can't say, all right, well, it's a run or a play action pass. And now with Teddy being the quarterback, they're going to say, we don't have to worry that much about the deep play action pass.
Like Kyle Shanahan does. Kyle Shanahan also alternating his quarterbacks in preseason.
That's got to change.
Well, I mean,
Why?
So you think they go with the 2 quarterback set?
I
think it will change.
I don't think they're going to alternate plays. I think you're going to see both of them.
Wow.
I mean, essentially, if you're saying like we need to get Trey Lance reps, but we're not ready to commit to him entirely, then
That's just so silly. I mean, that's just doing what we said was ridiculous for the Broncos, taking this thing up until the end into the regular season. If Trey Lance is your future and you see enough in him to put him on the field in the regular season, he should be your guy 100% throughout the week on game day. Well, I mean, that just doesn't make any sense.
But we were also suggesting that maybe you define it situationally with Teddy and Drew. That you say, Teddy's your starter. You get to the 25-yard line.
That
close
was
to the red
you.
zone. Yeah, exactly. you go for Drew. You know, and if you're behind by more than 4 points, under 5 minutes or double digits with 10 minutes to go, you put in Drew then as well because you're trying to bring it back.
No.
You're just trying to get through the year here is what I'm saying.
But not in San Francisco, they're not. Clearly it's Trey Lance. And I understand if they think Jimmy Garoppolo gives them the best chance to win right now and they want to win since Kyle Shanahan only has 1 winning season, let me remind you.
That's what I was going to say, is there pressure on Kyle Shanahan to win because he has 1 good season.
Then that's fine. Play Jimmy Garoppolo. But then when you put Trey Lance on the field, you are saying he can do enough that don't take him off. Anyways, I think that's
And you
just
can
crazy.
shift it
All
from
right.
week to week.
Last one here is offensive line. Let's get that knocked out.
Let's see if we're all the same again. This was one where I had some issues putting it together in terms of just exactly what do I do. I went with 8 guys. Obviously, you have your 5 starters with Bobby Mase getting the nod at right tackle. Then I had Calvin Anderson, a lock. Netani Muti, a lock. Quinn Miners, a lock. And then, guys, I said in my head, 8 is not that many offensive linemen to have, but there is just a massive drop-off from these 8 to the rest of them. Why would you use a roster spot on a guy who's going to be your 9th guy for when there's just a massive drop-off? I thought it just doesn't make sense. If you end up having to use your 9th offensive lineman, it's going to be bad anyways, so might as well not use it, waste a roster spot until you get there.
I tend to agree. I think mine was the exact same, and I felt the exact same way. Okay, so you know who would be the 9th? Cam Fleming. You know where Cam Fleming was available? On the street right before training camp. So
And do you know what he's done since?
nothing.
He's been bad. It's
Yes,
not like a
he's
team's
been-
going to pick him up.
So
he's responsible for setting up a turnover because he was beaten on the play. And some of that's on Drew Lock
Yes.
on Saturday with the strip sack fumble because he had over 3 seconds, but he was still beaten on the play. And he's responsible for having a touchdown taken off the board when Bridgewater was in there in Minnesota.
right,
Yeah.
he's been bad, and the point is, if you can find him on the street, then you can find him or someone just like him on the street if you happen to need a 9th offensive
And you
lineman.
can save $650,000.
Yeah, and I was going to say the Broncos will have to eat $1 million of his contract, but you can either eat $1 million and say it was a bad idea, or you can eat $1.6 million by keeping him on the roster. Take the savings. Take the
Yeah.
$600,000, say, here's $1 million, thanks for coming.
Every dollar counts
Great-
if you're
great
looking at
gig if
Aaron
you can get
Rodgers
it.
this year.
Yes, it is. So, Mase, you put Austin Schlotman in there before, or as the 9th.
As the 9th guy because I feel better about him if something happens at center. You don't quite know about Quinn Miners at center if he's ready to go. They haven't shown a willingness to move Graham Glasgow over to center. So Schlotman, I think there's a little bit more of a trust factor there with him at the interior spots. And then you say, okay, well, who's your other backup tackle going to be? You can get 6 veterans on the practice squad. So maybe you put Cameron Fleming on your practice squad. Quinn Bailey is another guy that you could probably slip through your practice squad as well. Someone that Vic Fangio has talked about before. And then you have at least one more O lineman also on the practice squad.
It's interesting that you found a Schlott for him, but I wonder who you took one away from. We'll get to
That'll
that.
be on the defensive side of the ball.
Kinda
On the
has to be.
defensive side of the ball. First, let's get to our DraftKings pick of the week. Boys, I don't have one yet. So we're going to do on bets, we call this a table-side Caesar. Come up to the table, reveal a pick to you. Now, that would be a parlay normally in our word. But speaking of parlays, I just want to tell you, you got to tune into DNVR Bets Daily. With the return of college football this week, we just handed out a winning parlay. I mean, just all you had to do is
That's all
tune
you
in.
guys do.
We got a 33% boost courtesy of the folks over at DraftKings Sportsbook. And we gave you Illinois +7. That was great. That was the best
Yep.
part.
Yep.
UCLA -10 in the first half. San Jose State -13.5 in the first half. That was a stress-free 3-leg parlay
Was.
at plus 755. So tune in to DNVR Bets Daily. We'll be live right after this at around 12:30.
I love it. I love it. And guys, my DraftKings pick of the week, I hate to do this, but I think the Kansas City Chiefs are going to be playing with their hair on fire to start the season. And so they play the Browns. Great game. Chiefs favored -6. The fact that it's under a touchdown, I love. They're at home as well. So give me the Chiefs. Then it takes a little burden off you when the Chiefs actually destroy the Browns in that first game because you end up winning some money.
That's nice. It's sort of why if you're rooting for the Broncos, you should bet against them because either way you win. Either they win or you win.
Exactly.
So, it's...
That's an interesting strategy that I don't think most of our listeners would want to employ.
Then you're not totally unhappy. And also, I don't know. I find it hard to bet on my team, karmically speaking, because I feel like you're assuming success, and you should never assume because it makes an ass out of you and me. But that's another reason why I'm betting against my Braves tonight. I'm going back to my standard Over-under on strikeouts. Julio Urias pitching for the Dodgers tonight against the Braves. It's 5.5. And
Seems like an easy cover.
You've got Drew Smiley pitching for the Braves. That means he's going to probably pitch them into some trouble because he has a high home run rate. It means you're swinging for the fences. You're striking out a little more. So I'm going to take the over on Urias tonight.
You know what? I'll change it so people don't have to be rooting for the Chiefs. This one I was a little more skeptical on, but I still really like it. First game of the season, everyone is going to be watching. You want to have some juice in it, right? Of course, Thursday night, a week from this Thursday, the Bucks take on the Cowboys. This is going to be the Bucks show. Tom Brady, Shaq Barrett, they're going to dominate at home. 7.5-point favorites. It's going to be a double-digit win.
All right, our friends at DraftKings don't yet have the lineup on CU Northern Colorado. Sometimes they don't put lines out on those games.
Yeah.
I heard it's sitting around Buffs minus 35.5. I was gonna try and give you the first half line in there. That's my big college football strategy. I actually developed it off of a strategy you were using for Alabama, which if you can get the first quarter lines, even better. Those are fun. So for me, though, I'm going to turn to fade another enemy of the CU faithful. Michigan State going into Northwestern. Northwestern only 3-point favorites. Michigan State is not very good. Northwestern super well coached. I think that they go ahead and take care of them by at least a touchdown.
And guys, over at DraftKings, they're offering 2 great deals right now. Of course, if you bet on any week 1 game, you can do the Cowboys and Bucks. You can do the Broncos and Giants. You win $200 in free bets if you get that. So make sure to bet just $1 on any week 1 game and get $200 free dollars in bets over at DraftKings Sportsbook, which you can use for anything, including these new in-game parlays, which are going to be so much fun. And on top of that, for that Bucks-Cowboys game, all customers can double their money as long as Tampa Bay doesn't lose by 74 points. So, I'm taking the minus 7.5. You get plus 74 on the Bucks. I think that's pretty good to cover, so you're going to double your money by doing that as well. So make sure to check out all the great offers that they have going on at DraftKings Sportsbook and download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code DNVR when you sign up to get that $200 in free bets when you place a $1 bet on any football game in Week 1. That's code DNVR over at DraftKings Sportsbook for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older, Colorado only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem call 1-800-522-4700.
2 things. Number 1, they should have made that 1 point higher, so it was 75. The other thing is, if you bet on the Broncos to beat the spread every game last year, you would have gone 9-7.
Yeah.
But if you'd taken the over, you would have gone 8-8. So it was dead even on the over/under last year for the Broncos.
They're pretty good.
Pretty good. Yes, they are.
Speaking of pretty good, Breckenridge Brewery. Not even pretty good. It's damn good.
Yeah.
Damn good beers over at Breckenridge Brewery. And like I said, got the golf tournament coming up this Friday. Breck Brews in the morning. Then you got the Buffs taking on UNC later that night. Breck Brews at night. We're going to have a tailgate up there in Boulder with some Breck Brews. So always a great time to drink a Breck Brew, but the beginning of football season is just about the best. Also, we were down there at the CU women's soccer game yesterday.
Yeah.
We had a little tailgate out there.
Some morning beers.
Yep. They have 19-ounce strawberry skies at the stadium.
Oh, my gosh. Doesn't get better, especially in the morning.
Yes.
Early afternoon, boom.
Loved it. So check out Breckenridge Brewery. They're damn good beers.
By the way, breaking news, Carson Wentz placed on the COVID-19 list by the Colts.
Wow.
Yikes.
Supposed to practice today.
It just keeps getting worse for them. But something that doesn't keep getting worse is our friends over at Chevalier Mortgage make it so easy to buy a home, and it's so stressful to buy a house right now. But our friends Mike and Virginia Chevalier will make sure that you are taken care of and take all of that stress off you. So give them a call directly at 303-257-6578 or visit them at DNVRmortgage.com. And when you do, you'll enter to win a free DNVR shirt or hat of your choice when you do. And most importantly, you'll get set up with a free consultation. The thing that really separates Mike and Virginia Chevalier is, 1, they're part of the DNVR fam, so they will absolutely take care of you. And 2 is that Mike is a certified financial planner, so he looks at more than just one more interest rate number. He looks at your entire financial picture. So make sure to check him out over at DNVRmortgage.com or call them at 303-257-6578. Michael Chevalier, NMLS 1931006. Virginia Chevalier, NMLS 1910631.
All right, let's move on to the defensive side of the ball, boys. And again, Mase has an aberration compared to us, so we're going to have to see where he makes up for it.
And it's right here because I've got 7 defensive linemen on my board. I've got Shelby Harris, Draymond Jones, Mike Purcell, the starters, Shamar Stephen, Deshaun Williams, McTelvin Ajim, and then I also have rookie Marquise Spencer. I thought that Shamar Stephen and Marquise Spencer, they might not slip through, and you want both of those guys. I mean, you just brought Shamar Stephen in, a veteran on the line. You want to couple that with the young guys. But then Marquise Spencer, he's had a really good training camp, so that's why I went 7 deep.
He's had a really good training camp, but did it show up in the preseason games? I think that's kind of the key thing there. And when you're talking about a 7th-round pick, these are players that traditionally you've got a better than average shot of being able to slip through. And keeping 7 defensive linemen would be very unusual for the Broncos. In the Bill Kolar era as D-line coach, typically it's been 6 with 5 guys active, 1 inactive on game day. So it's kind of a numbers game as well. I mean, are you going to deactivate 2? And you're already seeing a lot of formations where they're emphasizing sub packages. We're seeing only 2 defensive linemen out there. I can't see 7 on the 53.
And to me, well, Ryan, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I had the same as Zach. Is that right, Kale? Yep. So I also kept Marquise Spencer around, and for me it came down to a simple question, which was, who's better, Marquise Spencer or Cam Fleming?
Right.
And I know you used Austin Schlotman. He wasn't. I mean, he might be the guy. He's versatile. He's been around for a while. That wouldn't surprise me. Munchak probably likes him. So I didn't necessarily consider him in this, and maybe I should have. But it just came down to who's a better player. And I think you get the benefit of the doubt again for the rookie. You want to keep him around, and like you said, he had a really, really strong training camp.
And to me, what I'm prioritizing is something you touched on. I'm prioritizing talent over numbers, and I would rather have a better defensive lineman than just a 9th offensive lineman. So that's why I'm doing it. But Mase, I wouldn't be shocked if they carry 9 offensive linemen and only 6 defensive linemen at all.
Yeah, and Spencer had some flashes, but at the same time didn't have nearly the same level of play as the 3 guys that we're talking about being on the second team in terms of Williams, Stephen, and Ajim. I mean, I think they actually have a really tough choice to decide who's going to be inactive for week 1.
Right.
If they only have their standard 5 defensive linemen active. I mean, I would expect it would probably be McTelvin Ajim, as well as he played in camp, who might be on the outside looking in, not getting a jersey in week 1 because Steven can play any of the first 3 spots, and they love Deshaun Williams and what he brought last year.
Yep.
Should we hit a super chat?
Let's do a
Just
super
coming
chat.
in right here. Let's get it, Kale.
All right. From Ian B, scenario where we keep Vic and fire Pat? ? Winning record, muted offense, no playoffs. Judy and Corp should be 1,000-yard receivers with a competent quarterback or scheme. Don't see that with Teddy / Neuter Drew. So
I don't see it. So is there a scenario? I mean, sure. I'm sure there's a tiny scenario where that, but I don't see it.
I think it could happen mid-season.
Right. Sure.
But not beyond this season.
Yes. Pat is Vic's guy. That was very clear. Rich Scangarello may have been more of a John Elway hire, but when Vic Fangio hired Pat Sherman, it was very clear that was his guy. So if it doesn't work out there, it's going to fall on Vic. And that's why I don't think that you see one but not the other.
Same thing with Tom McMahon.
Yes.
But
Very much so.
what if you finish 11-6 and your offense is ranked like 24th? Your defense, the number 1 defense in the league, and your offense is is right around the bottom third.
That's the one scenario, but I don't see the
think
Broncos finishing 11-6 if they have a bottom third offense.
Yeah, I really don't either. You'd need a lot of breaks.
Your defense has to be incredible, and they have to be scoring.
Right, that's what I
Yeah.
mean.
You're-
Pick sixes, scooping scores, all that stuff.
The other thing that has to happen probably is you're winning the games you should win by, say, a 20-13 count. Like your first 3 games, you're 3-0, but you win them 17-10, 20-13, 21-10. But then you go up against the Godzillas on your schedule and you get blasted.
Right.
So
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible. So I guess if that scenario is possible, then him staying and Pat going is possible. But even then, I almost feel like Vic would just keep Pat Shurmur around.
I think so too.
And the other thing is, if that type of season happens, you're in the Aaron Rodgers sweepstakes. If Rodgers doesn't return to Green Bay for next year, and then who would Aaron Rodgers want the coordinator to be?
I don't think he cares. He's the coordinator.
All right, exactly. Kale, do we have any more super chats? All right, so should we move on to linebackers?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, Kale, we're looking at
All the same on both of these.
Von Miller. This was super easy for me, guys. It was just like the offensive line. There's no reason to keep a fifth guy when you're just so strong with your top four.
Yeah, this one's easy. Jonathan Cooper, who's your fourth here, I feel like could start for like half the league.
Week one.
Week one.
Yeah.
He was that good in the preseason. Obviously, we're going to need to see him go up against, the best tackles in the league, which we didn't see him do that.
Right.
But just the way he played, the energy he played with, the closing speed he displayed, all of it was like really, really high level stuff. I go 4 deep here, and you're really happy with that. Really happy.
I really want to see Vic Fangio get some Wade Phillips in him and rotate
NASCAR.
those guys liberally. They have some NASCAR packages as well, but don't be afraid to give Von Miller rest for 30% of the snaps, Bradley Chubb rest for 25 or 30%, and get Malik Reed and Jonathan Cooper out there, because both of those guys could start for a lot of teams in this league. I mean, Malik literally led you in sacks last year.
Well, and what we know about Vic is he likes to play his starters, especially at outside backer, 90% of the time. So I think you're 100% right, Mase. I would get those guys on the field at least 30% of the time. And a
Take
thing to
advantage
remember,
of the quality.
Exactly.
Keep your guys fresh.
A thing to remember about Jonathan Cooper is he did this against Garrett Bowles multiple times in practice. So you're right. We didn't see him do it in games against the ones. We did see it in practice, which is encouraging and discouraging depending on how you look at it.
Yeah, I mean, Jonathan Cooper's just a beast. I remember thinking this offseason, like, it's going to be tough to replace Jeremiah Atachu.
Easy.
And you just,
They did it
boom,
with the 7th round pick.
did it with ease, and now you got a guy who is a future starter for you.
Yep, exactly. All right, inside backer, Kale, let's go. To me, this was very easy as well. You got Josie Jewell, Alexander Johnson, Justin Sternad, and Baron Browning.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing you could question is, are you considering Baron Browning a start or a inside linebacker? Because they still haven't really committed to how they're going to use him. We haven't seen him a lot, so that's the only thing here. But it would just be same guy, different position.
Right, and it's same numbers at the end.
Yes.
And the other thing is, I mean, I think it was Mike Klitz's mock that had 5 inside linebackers on the roster. The problem is, you're going to use Pat Surtain like another linebacker.
Yeah.
Based on
Which is crazy
how they
to
work him
the
in.
average,
Yeah.
the average thought. But
Mm-hmm.
the way he plays, the way he looks, the way that they're going to call this defense, I think you're going to see that a lot of as long as it works.
Yeah.
Because when coaches experiment and it doesn't work, they get real scared real fast.
Yes, they
I'll tell you
do.
another interesting thing about the linebackers is that when they went into their nickel sub package early on Saturday, there were a couple of times where they went with three defensive linemen and 1 linebacker. And the 1 linebacker that they went with was Jewell, not Alexander Johnson.
That's how they started off the game.
Yeah.
Was Jewell out there?
Which is really
Yep.
kind of interesting
Yep.
because you'd say, okay, do you want the guy who's better in coverage? Well, Johnson's got a bit more, certainly more speed to him, but Jewell tends to be more in the right place at the right time.
Right, and that's why he got a helmet sticker from me, was because he got that nod. All right, and maybe the most interesting conversation we'll have all day today. Let's go to cornerbacks right now. I've got 6. Of course, you got the big 4. Then Michael Ojemudia, he's not going on IR before because he's going to play this season, but he is a guy that maybe makes the roster and then you put on IR, but regardless, he makes a 53-man roster initially. And then I also had to go Kerry Vincent Jr. I think this is a guy that the Broncos got a steal in the 7th round, and I wouldn't be surprised if someone poached him if you moved on from him, because this was a guy who fell because he opted out last year. He didn't have any tape. That scares a lot of teams. Teams now may see, okay, he does want to play football. He is back. We may put him in as our 53 guy, so I don't want to lose him, so I'm keeping him.
I went with Nate Hairston over Vincent, and just
Interesting.
again, it's the 7th round picks. And one thing, there are going to be claims around the league, but I think sometimes we kind of overvalue and have higher expectations on the number of guys that get claimed than actually ends up happening in reality. And 7th round picks, especially this year, they're basically undrafted guys. I think the chances of getting Vincent through would be better. And so I went with Nate Hairston, who could have a huge special teams role as well, and has a bit more experience there in that room.
Well, and see, I think it's important that you brought up that a lot of times it's overvalued how much guys are going to be poached by other teams, but that's why I've only said it once or twice.
Yeah.
I really do think that Kerry Vincent could be grabbed, and I just think when you look at Vincent and Nate Hairston has a way better chance of falling through. This is a guy that's just been around. He's been on the street, so to say. So that's why I give the nod to the younger guy here. The good news is, and touch on wood, hopefully don't have to be counting on either of these guys. So if you want to take a gamble on the younger guy that you think has more upside, that is lightning fast and Kerry Vincent, that's why I think you can do that here.
Hairston's still a guy that started 17 games in the league, though, and that's and there are teams that could look at him and say, all right, okay, we're really struggling as we get to CB4. At least we know he can step in there and play. And so he could have more value than maybe we anticipate.
Sure,
I just think
fair,
you have
but
the
he
luxury.
was available.
I just think you have the luxury to go upside with the way that the top half of that roster.
Unless
looks.
you're talking about special teams as well and
Yeah.
needing guys in that phase of the game.
So now that is such a minute roster decision, but reports coming out over the weekend. We've also had George Payton tell us many times that, look, right now, the Broncos are fielding calls. I believe Mike Kliss said over the weekend that the Broncos aren't actively shopping their top 4 guys, but they are listening to calls. And so we have to have the conversation. Who would you trade? Would you trade any of these 4, and for what price? So first off, I mean, the question is, would there be something that you would do to trade one of these 4 guys? Or are you saying, nope, I want to keep this the best cornerback room in the NFL?
I'd like to keep it as the best cornerback room in the NFL. But as has been said many times in the United States of America, everything has a price.
That's very true.
So I love Bryce Callahan as a slot corner. If somebody offered me a 3rd round pick for Callahan, I'd take it.
Would you do that deal?
Yeah, I would.
So
Now,
why is that different than Tim Patrick?
well, I was gonna say those two things are tied together for me.
But
Okay.
I'd take a 4th round pick for Tim Patrick today.
Okay, so
you're doing
exactly.
4th and 3rd.
My thing is, if you're willing to do one, you should be willing to do both. If you're not willing to do one, you shouldn't be willing to do either.
That's fair, because then your philosophies are on the same page.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, Bryce Callahan has not played at a 3rd round pick level for you, or at least contributed at a 3rd round pick level for you because of his health.
Yeah.
And so for me, you're basically saying like, well, we might have overpaid here. Then we got a 3rd round pick out of it. It was a hell of a deal for us.
Right, and that's where I think I stand with all 4 of these guys. And Bryce Callahan is the biggest name out there because the Broncos save the most money. There's the least amount of dead cap by far. He's the guy who's been talked about, are the Broncos potentially going to cut? I think that would be crazy if they just cut him. But if you can get a 3rd round pick back, you do it. But to me, I'm not desperate to get rid of any of these guys, and I think a lot of people think Bryce, would be a roster dump for the Broncos, and so you're getting a 6th, 7th round pick back. No, I'm okay.
No.
He's already on your books right now. You keep him as the best slot cornerback in the NFL, or at least one of the best, and you pay him his $7 million, and that's how I am with any of these guys. Like you said, Mase, none of these guys are off the table for me. But the price is probably going to be way too high for anyone to trade for.
So would even Pat Surtain not be off the table?
He's not off the table, but the price
Your
would
look, Ryan, your look just...
the price would be so high.
Priceless.
What it would be is 2 first-round picks from a bad
Okay.
from a bad team.
Okay, yeah, you got me. You got me
then
back
that helps,
on board.
It helps with your quarterback position moving forward. Again, I think that's way too high for any team to pay. But if someone were to offer that, you listen.
Right, because if you could have just gotten, if you could have traded 9 for the Jags' next 2 first-round picks,
Yeah.
you'd
Right.
take that.
Yep, exactly.
And you take it again now. But yeah, I mean, no one's doing that.
Yeah, I'm not doing it for 1 first-round pick from any team. So no one's doing that. And then the question is, okay, Ronald Darby and Kyle Fuller, you guys doing anything?
Well,
Wait, real quick. Who do we expect to be the worst team in the NFL this year?
Jets.
Houston.
Houston.
Okay, so Houston offers you their first-round pick for Surtain. Are you taking it?
Yes,
I think you have to.
Yeah.
because I'm viewing that as either capital for Aaron Rodgers or
Whoa.
I pick my quarterback at the top of the draft.
You're not giving away the number one pick
Yeah.
for Aaron Rodgers.
Well, I mean, maybe if you decide you don't want to go through the developmental process, I mean, and that's something that George Payton could decide. I'm thinking that has a decent chance of being number one overall, and so okay, that's Spencer Rattler or Sam Howell. I would choose Howell. Some others might choose Rattler, but either way, you're probably naming your quarterback.
I'm not ready to make a choice there. We've got a whole season of college football. A lot can change between now and the end. I mean,
it will.
Think about if we had this conversation the year before Kyler Murray came on the scene.
Yeah.
No one
Joe
even
Burrow.
knew who he was, really.
Yep.
Joe Burrow was not a first-round pick head into the year.
No, not even close. So a lot can change between now and the draft. But if you could get the number one overall pick for that position, or the perceived number one, almost guaranteed to be top 5.
Could you imagine, though, the reaction in Houston if they made that trade?
I mean,
As well as Surtain has played, I mean, their fans would just be apathetic.
but they're also expecting to get multiple first-round
Tons back.
picks.
Yeah, you're right.
For Deshaun Watson, so
Yep.
they could say, "Hey, look, we're going to come away with multiple top picks and a top corner." And multiple second-round picks, like all this stuff.
But if they get him from Miami, what are you talking about at best? Like a mid-first-round pick?
Well, what if Deshaun doesn't play this year?
Then
How good do you think Miami is with Tua? That's what it comes down to.
they just went 10-6 last year with Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Don't they
too.
trade Tua too?
Yes, they do trade Tua. You're right. So then who's their backup?
Jacoby Brissett?
Yeah, it's a pretty
See,
competent roster they have there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty good.
I don't think if that happened and they couldn't trade Tua, I think they just ride with Tua for a year. The other thing is also if they make a Deshaun Watson trade, you know there are going to be conditions involved.
Yep.
That the compensation it'll be tied to playing time, and yet there'll probably be a level of compensation tied to the legal entanglements there.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I guess back to the Broncos now. Let's say Kyle Fuller or Ronald Darby are on the market or people are calling. What are you trading them for?
I
Kyle
wouldn't
Fuller?
trade any. It's not worth giving up anything for me for less than a third.
So would you take a third for either of them?
Yes.
Here's the thing. If you get a third for Kyle Fuller, you just got a third for signing a free agent.
For nothing.
Yeah. So that's why I would do it as well. I would do day 2 picks for either of those guys. And why you do a third-round pick for Darby and Fuller is then Patrick Surtain is on the field 100% of the time now.
And Fuller, Darby, I feel like there might internally be a little bit of buyer's remorse on how long and how much they paid him.
I don't think so. And the reason why I don't think there's remorse is that if you can kind of look on the horizon and see Pat Surtain's our CB1 and Ronald Darby is a perfectly fine CB2.
For sure. I just think that they're like, oh, we have this embarrassment of riches now, and we're paying that guy a lot. He might be the 4th best one we have.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I could see that too. And boy, then you're also opening money. Then it is kind of a win later move as well. But you can convince yourself it helps you because Patrick Surtain is on the field. So I think it's a really interesting conversation. Do you guys think any moves happen? Whether it's cutting Bryce Callahan, whether it's a trade in the next, let's say 29 hours?
No.
No.
I
Now,
don't
if
think
they
so
get
either.
off to a poor start, like if they're sitting there at 1-3 after the first 4 games, then anybody who's not in the plans for 2022 and beyond, you're taking calls on. And that would include Fuller, and that would include Callahan, and a lot of other guys.
I saw a Pittsburgh fan yesterday try to make this trade happen. Bryce Callahan for a 6th-round pick and the Steelers' punter.
Is he good?
I think so. I think he's okay. But no, the Broncos shouldn't do that.
No, especially since they have to play them in week 4.
Especially because Bjorn is going to be a free agent at some point.
Bjork. So for me, it just comes down to, right, this is the season of Vic, right? He gets everything he wants. There's the line from the behind the Broncos or whatever they call that thing where he said, I got you your corners.
Yeah.
You know?
He got him the steady quarterback, got him the corners.
Right.
He
So
did
why
everything.
would you, like, they want to run this 4 DB dime defense. Why would you take that away from him before the season even starts?
Right. Yep. Yeah.
You got to give him a chance.
Yes, you do. You absolutely do. And then let's round it out. Safeties, guys. Here, our final position. I guess we got special teams as well. But safeties, to me, this was easy. I went with the 2 studs, and I also went with the 2 rookies. I mean, you just made a 5th-round investment in them. I do think if you cut one of those guys, they're going to get picked up by someone else as a 5th-round pick.
I thought Jamar Johnson showed enough on Saturday.
I
to
thought
get that
so,
last
too.
Why didn't he
spot.
just pick the ball off?
Seriously.
I'm like, what are you doing, dude? You were over there with plenty of time. Just put both hands out and catch the ball.
He wanted a powerful swat.
Yeah, it was
Maybe
really
he
weird.
Maybe he didn't think he could do it. Maybe he didn't trust his hands. Although the game he had against Ohio State last year shows me he should trust his hands
Yes.
to catch
I
those
guess
passes.
there is like a 2% chance that it goes through your hands and into
Yeah.
the hands of the receiver.
Oh, my gosh.
But at that point, yeah, I don't know. I just end the game, catch the ball.
Yep,
Maybe he thought maybe there's a time and score issue for him where he thought that was going to be
Yeah.
the last play of the game. He just thought knock it down. That's all that matters.
Or he just loves batting passes.
He can look like a basketball
love
player.
that.
On that. It's pretty cool.
Mace, do you have the same 4?
Same 4. And
There we go.
I mean, I thought about PJ Locke in there as well, but
So for this then, guys.
I thought Jamar came on the last week or so and showed enough. Caden Stearns has had a spot for a while. I like that group, and I think you can get. And then Trey Marshall, of course, he's dealing with an injury. Maybe he goes to IR. Maybe you slip him through and bring him back on the practice squad. But the other thing is, I went with both rookies because Caden Stearns in particular, if he has to play, I think you've reached a level of trust with him where you feel like it's not going to be too big for him. And so you have
I
that
agree.
gives you the freedom to say, I don't need a veteran back there. I can have the 2 rookies backing up the 2 vets.
And then I think special teams were all the same as well. Of course, you've got Brandon, you've got Bob and Moyer, and you've got Bjorn.
Yes, of
Yes,
course.
yeah. Wouldn't that be something? A Bob and Moyer snapping to Bjorn?
It's Bajorquez.
Bajorquez, there we go.
Bajorquez.
Although I was just looking in the comments are talking reports are that Rams are going to release Johnny Hecker in favor of him.
Wow.
I mean, I was thinking that during the game. They'll probably save like $3 million or something.
Yep, and potentially get a better punter.
so would
It's
you
hard
try
to
to
be
get
better
Johnny
than-
Hecker if you're the Broncos?
Yeah.
Absolutely, I would. No offense to Sam Martin.
No, I mean, offense to Sam Martin. He's not as good.
And so look at that, guys. I mean, Ryan, we had no differences.
Yeah.
You and I
we
had
didn't-
the same roster, and then Mase, we had 2 different players from Mase. So, I mean,
Yeah.
this should be pretty easy for Vic Fangio and George Payton.
We're lacking a surprise. There's always a surprise. I don't know who it's going to be, but there will be something that we don't expect that will happen.
I hope it's not just cutting Bryce Callahan.
Did you guys have TJ Ward being cut before?
No, no one
Yeah,
did.
there's all. Yeah, that's where it would be a guy like Callahan. It would, and because it's an easy, you would look for an easily.
There's a difference, though.
divestible
Callahan
contract.
can play. TJ Ward, if Callahan gets cut right now, he's going to get picked up immediately. Maybe he gets injured, but he's going to be picked up so quick.
Yeah.
TJ Ward, I mean, his career was done then.
Eventually,
Got signed the same day by Tampa.
yeah, eventually
But he had nothing.
And
he showed they had nothing left.
What
in
did he
Tampa.
do though? He did
Yeah, he
nothing.
He did nothing. But I mean, you could have used him in that dime backer role. There was different things you could have done with him. So it was a surprise. And I'll always remember that they had just traded. Oh gosh, what was his name? The CSU kid, the offensive lineman.
Oh,
Sam Brilo.
Yeah.
They just
Sam Brilo.
traded Sam Brilo for a 6th, and I was like, you can get a 6th for him, but you can't get, or was it a 5th?
Yeah.
They got something good for him. I was like, you can't get anything for TJ Ward. That's kind of damning, and it turned out to be true. He didn't have anything left in the tank.
Yep.
I think he did get hurt, like his first practice in Tampa
He
or
did.
something.
But I mean, what's a surprise going to be if it's not Callahan?
I have no clue.
Because I don't really think if they do cut Marquise Spencer, that's not like a
No.
shocker. I mean, you and I can absolutely see that happening.
A surprise trade of Graham Glasgow,
That would
and
be
then
something.
you put Natani
Natani
Muti
Muti
in the
in
starting
there.
lineup.
Count
They
me
want
in.
to. They want to. They want to put Natani in.
Count me in.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, something will come out. I don't know. We don't know what it is yet, but there will be a surprise. That's
Some
my
might be surprised by Cameron Fleming being cut. It might be a surprise league wide. I don't think it'd be a surprise to those of us who watched
No.
every snap of the preseason and training camp as well. If Fleming got the Ziggy in the next 24 hours,
Here's what would be the biggest surprise potentially: Drew Lock. Do you think there's any chance that something happens with him and he's traded?
I mean, maybe the Colts. I keep coming back to the Colts as maybe they,
Especially with the news this morning.
right, exactly. Maybe they just say like, let's bring in Drew Lock, see what happens. Makes sense to me, but
You're
I
not
don't think
doing
so.
it without getting a viable quarterback in the room. And with all respect to Brett Rippon, I don't think you're doing that unless you can bring somebody in that you can trust. Now, Blake Bortles, I threw up in my mouth saying the name, is out there. And I guess you could bring him in, but I don't want to.
I'd be down for some
about-
Bortle service.
I don't want them to do that.
How about Drew Lock for Carson Wentz?
I mean, yeah, no.
Not if you're trying to save dollars for a potential
Right,
pursuit of discount double check guy next spring. I mean,
Yeah. Also, like maybe I don't know. Maybe the Vikings liked what they saw from Drew Lock. They're saying like, hey, Kellen Mond kind of sucks.
but I don't want Jake Browning.
no.
And they're looking to get rid of Jake Browning. Jake Browning is awful. Like if they made a trade, it's Drew Lock to Minnesota for Jake Browning and a 4th round pick, I'd be like, you've got to be freaking kidding me. If you have to go with Jake Browning, you might as well go with Nathan Peterman.
Yeah, I don't think the Broncos would trade Drew Lock for another quarterback.
No.
I think they would end up
Picks.
making another move to get a quarterback and getting a 3rd round pick back or something.
Right. They're bringing in Kyle Shermer. Is that
yes,
his name?
exactly. He has a place to stay.
Yes, exactly.
Do you remember when they signed him? Not even signed him. They brought him in for a tryout, and he had been in town for like a week, and his dad couldn't see him because of COVID protocols
oh.
and stuff.
So then when they signed him, they got to see each other. Was that the whole reason why they signed him?
They didn't even sign him.
Oh, they didn't.
literally had him here to be like a tryout guy.
I thought they no, they didn't have him for like a week.
I thought they signed him.
Yeah,
Did
I think they
sign
did.
him?
Yeah,
Okay.
Hang on, we're gonna confirm this here.
Maybe they signed him on the practice squad.
something like that.
Okay.
It was right after all the stuff went down that week, right?
Yep.
Or wait, no, like on his Wikipedia page. Yep, did not.
Yeah,
no-
I think they
Okay.
brought him just in as a tryout guy and put him up in a hotel and said, "Hang around here, we may need you."
Was
They
his
were-
dad allowed to watch the tryout? I assume so.
From a distance.
on camera probably.
Oh my!
Kind of like how
God.
Gary Kubiak would watch Peyton work out back in the day.
Right.
Do you think Kyle flashed him a similar sign that Peyton flashed Gary?
Probably. If he
Just
did,
the
I like
birds.
him more. All right, we got to wrap up the live side of things. We still have a podcast side to get to. So we'll get to all of the questions there on the podcast side of things. You can get your questions in for that by becoming a member at thednvr.com. We appreciate that. We appreciate everyone for listening, and we will catch you guys later.